everybody, and to today's City to City Spotlight session focusing on Austin in the USA and also part of Digital City Festival. This is part of a series of City Spotlight sessions that are taking place this week, all of which you'll be able to watch on demand in the future. So feel free to share the links once we actually release those as well. My name's Jeff Bocock, International Trade Development Manager here at the Growth Company in Manchester, who actually support businesses locally, nationally, and also internationally to grow. I'll be host for today's session, and I'd like to introduce our panel that are joining us today. First and foremost, we've got Hannah Tracy, who's Head of Business Development within the creative, digital and tech sector from MIDAS. Also joining us is Lee Christie, Senior Vice President of Global Technology and Innovation, all the way from Austin Chamber of Commerce. Laura Purser, Vice Counsel and Trade and Investment Officer for Tech and Creative Industries within the Department of International Trade. And also joining our panel today, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Amber Gunst, CEO from Austin Technology Council, and also Alice Smith, Principal Lead Consultant at Oscar Technology. With regards to the session overview today, and just with regards to general etiquette, all attendees' microphones will be on mute and cameras will be turned off. And as I mentioned before, we will record today's session. We would encourage you to pose questions within the Q&A function, and we'll also endeavour to answer these questions at the end of the session. And we've allocated approximately 5 minutes to do that as well. Just to give you an overview of the session content today, we'll start firstly with an overview of Manchester's economy and its tech ecosystem, and that'll be delivered by Hannah from MIDAS. And then we'll move on to an overview of Austin's economy and the tech ecosystem, followed by a panel discussion focusing on the strengths and opportunities between both cities and looking at some of the success stories from businesses who've expanded into each of those cities as well. And as I've mentioned before, we'll round off the session with any Q&A that's coming in from our audience today. So before we get into the panel discussion, from Manchester and Austin, who are going to tell us more about the different tech clusters in each of these cities. We'll start with Manchester first, and if I can just hand over to Hannah, if you're ready to go, Hannah, to give an overview of what's happening in Manchester and the support from MIDAS.
Great, thank you, Jeff. So as Jeff said, my name's Hannah Tracy, and I lead on the creative, digital and tech sector at MIDAS, and we're Manchester's inward investment agency. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about what's happening in Manchester, what the opportunities are for tech businesses who are interested in setting up a base here. So if we could just go to the next slide, Naomi. I'll start with why Manchester. Why should you be interested in looking at Manchester? So if we start with the location, you can see on the map, it's a very central location, right at the heart of the Northern Powerhouse. So easy access to the rest of the UK and lots of international destinations through its international airport. We've also got a very large population, so just over 7 million people within an hour's commuting distance. So from a business point of view, that means there's a really large and diverse talent pool to tap into. Also a very cost-effective location as well, so not just on the office side and property side, but also salaries and the cost of living as well. And finally, it's got a very large and diverse economy. So the GVA is just short of about £63 billion. And a lot of the growth in the economy is coming from the technology and digital sector. So if we flip to the next slide, we can see a few stats about what's happening in the technology sector. Manchester's got a very long and rich history with technology, and a lot of this stems back to Alan Turing's days at the University of Manchester. It was here that he discovered, or he built the world's first stored computer at the University of Manchester. And since then, it's had a legacy of specialising in computing and data science. And more recently, we've had a study commissioned a couple of years ago by the Data City, which identified Manchester as the UK's top digital tech city. And this was based on the scale of digital business activity happening in the city region, as well as the affordability for a business being based here. And last year, Tech Nation ranked Manchester as the fastest growing tech cluster in Europe, with investment growing at 277%. So lots of really fast growing businesses here. And the whole sector is made up of a really broad, diverse set of businesses. So there's just over 18,000 businesses working in this area. And they range from digital media to e-commerce, fintech, health tech, AI, cybersecurity, and everything in between, really. And it's got a good presence of very large businesses, so people like companies like Google, Microsoft, Cisco, AWS, all have significant bases in the city region. But it's also got a really thriving startup scene as well, and lots of SMEs who are really thriving and growing their businesses in Manchester. It's also home to 5 unicorns, showing that Manchester's a really great city for a business, particularly a technology business, to scale. Next slide, please. So why is that? Why are businesses able to scale here? Why are they doing so well, and why is there so much growth? A lot of that's down to the market opportunities that are open to businesses here in the city. So I just thought I'd pick out a few which could be relevant to businesses watching this. So as previously mentioned, Manchester's got a really big economy. A large part of that is looking at things like financial services and a big manufacturing base. But an interesting area is around the public sector. So Manchester is actually a devolved city region, and that means that decision-making powers and funding are actually held locally within Greater Manchester as opposed to nationally. So this means that Manchester is headed up by the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. So it opens up a lot of public sector opportunities for companies, and instead of having to go to 10 different local authorities to be able to pitch products and services, there's actually one voice for the whole of the city region. And devolution also means that Manchester has control over its healthcare budget. So it's got a £6 billion healthcare budget, and Manchester's always looking for technology companies who can come in and innovate the healthcare sector and really make the most of this budget. As a city, we've also got really ambitious targets to become carbon neutral. So the target is that we want to become carbon neutral by 2038, which is actually 12 years ahead of the rest of the UK. And as a city, we know that Manchester won't be able to achieve this on its own. So it's actively looking for innovative companies who can pilot new green initiatives or new energy initiatives that can happen in the city region to help us achieve this target. And then another area that I thought I'd just pick out is around the e-commerce sector. So those 5 unicorns that I mentioned before, they're all e-commerce businesses. So this offers companies a lot of opportunities if you are a technology company who's looking to sell into large e-commerce businesses. So for example, a lot of emerging technologies such as AI or chatbots or immersive, they're exactly the technologies that these big e-commerce companies are looking to work with companies on at the moment. And they're very happy and open to work with startups and SMEs on delivering these new technologies into their business. Next slide, please. And in order to be able to help businesses to take advantage of what's happening in Manchester and take advantage of these market opportunities, we've got a very established support system in place by MIDAS and by Jeff's organisation, the Business Growth Hub, which enables businesses to be able to receive a lot of free support to help not just set up their business, but grow their business. So in the first instance, a business could work with MIDAS, and we offer support in understanding what the business case is for opportunities in Manchester. So why would Manchester be a good location for your business? We also help with a lot of the practicalities of setting up. So finding an office or co-working space, hiring the right staff, getting your brand known within the city, making introductions into the various networking groups. And we have a soft landing scheme as well, which really helps companies because it offers a low risk, low cost option of being able to set up in the city. And then once you're in Manchester, once you've got your business set up here, there's a whole host of organisations who can offer support to be able to help grow and develop your business. So as I mentioned, the Business Growth Hub are there to be able to support SMEs. They offer a lot of free support and advice. So it could be things like funding opportunities, how to look at innovation within your business, even down to things like global scale-up advice, which is what all these sessions are about. There's also a lot of established technology hubs and incubators, as well as things like accelerator programs that have been set up in the city that are all aimed to help businesses to grow. And next slide, please. So just to sum up, in terms of why you should think about Manchester as a place for, as a potential location for your business, it really is a city where a technology business can scale. So you can recruit the right talent here. There's an established ecosystem that you can slot right into with lots of support and networking available. It's a very cost-effective location, especially with support schemes like the Hello Manchester soft landing scheme. There's a lot of market opportunities to be able to help with business development and get your business going and winning contracts very quickly. And it's a location that's very easily accessible. So as an Austin-based business, you can easily travel both within the UK, but also get on that international flight as well out to the US and continue working on both sides of the continent. So if you'd like any further information about how Manchester might fit into your future location plans, please do feel free to get in touch and we'd be more than happy to help. So I'm going to pass back over to Jeff now.
Lovely, thanks very much indeed for that, Tana. Yeah, it's a great insight in terms of the support that's being offered, not just by MIDAS, but also the Business Growth Hub as well. So thanks very much for that. Yeah, if I can just introduce two of other members of the presenters today. So we've got Laura from the Department of International Trade, and as I mentioned before, Lee as well from Austin Chamber of Commerce. So again, really keen to learn more about the Austin economy, the tech ecosystem, and the support that you can potentially offer as well. So if I can pass the baton to hand Laura to learn a little bit more, should I say, about what's happening over in Austin.
Hello, my name is Laura Purser. A warm welcome from Houston, Texas. I am a Trade and Investment Officer for the UK Department for International Trade, based out of the British Consulate here. I work with my colleague Kate Wilkinson, and together we support companies that are in the tech and creative sectors, both companies that are UK based who wish to grow their business in this part of the US, as well as US companies that wish to establish investments in the UK. We work regionally, and our remit is to support companies that are based in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico, as well as companies that wish to grow their business in these 5 states. I've only got a couple of minutes to give you a bird's eye view of what we do and how you can engage with us. So no 2 companies are alike. So we always tailor our business services to what your needs are. And the best part is that most of our services are free. In the US market, the most competitive in the world, it does help to understand the dynamics of what's happening, particularly in a really rich tech ecosystem such as Austin and elsewhere in our patch. So if you're a UK-based company wishing to expand here, the first step to engage with DIT would be to contact your local international trade advisor. I'll post the URL if you don't know that offhand. We work very closely with MIDAS and others. And once you're connected with the international trade advisor, they'll ask you some information to vet you and understand which services you're most suited for. And in some cases, you'll be referred to our in-market trusted third-party provider, OCO Global, or sometimes you'll be directly connected with us at Post. There are 9 posts, and we all work together across the US network to support companies that are wishing to expand here. And what we'll do is give you a sense of the local conditions in each of the markets. And you know, certainly from the Texas side, we can talk about Austin, and we make introductions to wonderful organizations such as Austin Chamber and the Austin Technology Council. And we can also make some market introductions to help you grow your business here. Conversely, if you are a US company seeking to expand your footprint in the UK, we offer services, and your first port of call would be to contact myself by email, and I'll post my email. I think it's also at the end of this short presentation. And from there, we'll just have a chat to talk about your needs and desires. And from there, we will most likely assign a UK-based project manager, and that's your single port of call who aggregates all of the DIT networks of support, including MIDAS. And we can compile custom benchmarking reports. So if you're not exactly sure where you want to land in the UK, we can give you a sense of what the different costs of doing business are across the UK, and even compared to some other European markets, for instance. And beyond that, we can also talk to you a little bit about where talent is located across the UK, so it can match what your needs are as you grow there. And there are also incentives that might be available locally, and we can talk to you a bit about that. And once you've decided to expand, we can give you some information about the who, what, wheres of doing business. That could include information on banking, visas, support and regulatory tax systems. We can tell you a bit about that. And we also do have sector specialists. Those sector specialists are really valuable to us. They have information about what's going on the ground in your sector and in your actual niche, a technology niche, if that's the case. And they can make introductions to centers of excellence, such as the universities. They can talk to you about what government sponsored R&D incentives might be available and things of that nature. I only promised to take 2 minutes, and I think I'm at 3. So without further ado, I am going to pass things over, and certainly do email, because there's so much more that we do that I didn't get to touch on. But over to you, Lee Christie. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura. And hello, everyone. This is Lee Christie, and I am located in Austin, Texas. And as Jeff said, I am the Senior Vice President of Global Tech and Innovation at the Austin Chamber. My role is very unique. The Austin Chamber is a private nonprofit, and as part of my work there, I travel internationally to attract capital and businesses into Austin, as well as help and promote our local tech companies to grow internationally. And I'm excited to hear, and was excited to hear, what Hannah had to share, because Manchester and Austin have so many similarities. And I think for what I'm sharing here, I think the best way is to really line up with what Hannah said and really show you where the synergies are with respect to Texas and Austin. And, you know, as you talk about Austin, really you have to think about Texas. And why? Because the, you know, the motto in Austin is really Texas is stronger together. And why? Because Texas cities are starting to work more collaboratively. And Texas is a beast, right? So in 2021, you know, Texas was announced that we're walking into this year as the 9th largest economy by GDP. We're also the 2nd largest state by population. We have more than 55 Fortune 500 companies that are headquartered in Texas. And as a state, we are business and tax friendly. So from there, you can see why Texas as a whole is extremely attractive. And then Austin specifically is really one of our tech hubs. And arguably, I would say it is the tech hub, but I would also argue that Texas is stronger together. Austin is the largest and 11th largest and fastest growing city in the United States. Actually, we've seen a higher growth rate in both companies, founders, and tech growing during COVID than we ever have. So COVID actually hasn't slowed Austin's growth from a tech industry. And part of that is because Austin is such a friendly place to not only move, but raise a family, grow a business. And we have, a large number of high-ranking universities, colleges, community colleges. And why that's important is because, that is really increasing the amount of young, skilled talent that is coming into our businesses and our tech companies. And our companies are actually doing more partnerships with our universities and colleges to make sure that these individuals are coming out and filling those gaps and needs that our tech companies have. Also, just as the thriving tech ecosystem and compared to Manchester, there's so many similarities. Austin is truly a place where you can not only launch a tech startup, but it is where you can scale. So for example, I know Hannah was talking about unicorns. We, not only have a large number of unicorns, I would say, for Austin, but we also have 3 that are led by female CEOs and founders, which I think is extremely unique. And that is Everlywell, Bumble, and Kendra Scott. We also have a very strong tech civic engagement. So our tech companies are really get engaged, not only in where they live, right, but from a community standpoint, giving back, getting on the ground. They also really collaborate, which I do think more and more makes Austin unique. So you may have, Capital Factory is truly a tech hub in Austin. And it's always been said that, at Capital Factory, you might have 5 or 6 startups working side by side. One might go under, and there you have founders who then create another company. We see that all the time. We have a very large number of serial entrepreneurs who are very successful and continue to launch companies. We then have individuals who are leaders at these companies that go on to launch their own companies. So we see that turn all the time, which really helps Austin strengthen itself as a community leader and as a city leader in tech ecosystem. We do have a brand that's growing internationally. So, as I travel and as our companies launch into different countries, especially into the UK and Asia, Austin is on the map. It's very rare that we have to explain where Austin is or what Austin is known for, which is great for companies expanding into Austin as well as companies in Austin expanding abroad. Lastly, I think from a funding perspective, we have 11 accelerators, we have 10 angel networks. I think in 2020, we did over 550 deals, $4.6 billion that were coming into Texas. And through COVID, we've seen an increase in funding syndication and a local venture presence. Like I said, our startup ecosystem and those investors are coming in. They are investing in local Austin companies, which allows them to scale, which is great for the economy, because as companies can expand into Austin, especially those international companies, you can know that being here is a strong economy where you can continue to grow, attract great talent, and you're able to really benefit from talent that's been groomed at Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, TikTok, Dell. I mean, the list goes on, right? And Hannah mentioned so many of those, and that produces even a higher level of talent. And of course, you've probably heard about Tesla launching in Austin. Oracle has now moved its headquarters here. And then lastly, I would say, we really are now a leader in the defense space. So, everything from the Army, Air Force, National Guard, Department of Defense, they all have headquarters here. We are the base of the Army Futures Command, which is first of its kind. And, running these innovation units in Texas is huge. And I think it helps put us on the map. I think it allows us to grow internationally. And I think it's a great place to land if you're an international company and you're coming into Austin. And it also allows you to grow relationships and be more connected to other cities such as Houston and Dallas and San Antonio and Fort Worth. So really that kind of hits on the main points of Austin, and I would say of Texas. I think from the chamber's perspective, we do offer a great deal of support, like companies from Amazon and Tesla, all the way down to our smaller tech companies. We do everything from help companies find square footage to put together roundtables so you can learn from others who are in your space. And we help you make sure that you're up and running with education and talent, that you're well connected. And then, of course, in my realm, the international focus. So if you ever need anything and you need a great place to start, I would say the Austin Chamber is the great first step. And then we get you connected to individuals like the Austin Technology Council and so on and so forth. So Austin's very well connected, and I would say it's a great place to launch. And if someone doesn't know the answer, they know 10 people to ask. So with that, Jeff, thank you for having us, and I look forward to the rest of the conversation.
Lovely. Thanks very much indeed for that, Lee. And again, big thank you to yourself, Laura, for just painting that landscape in terms of the services that DIT can offer, across the 5 states that you mentioned. And very interesting that you mentioned there, Lee, about how there's areas of collaboration, building back stronger together. That real strong tech cluster that Austin can provide businesses, and that real strong area of collaboration across the SME network as well, which was great to hear about. So thanks both for that. If I can introduce 2 other people that we've not spoken to yet. So firstly, we've got Amber Gunst, CEO from Austin Technology Council, and also to Alice Smith, Principal Lead Consultant at Oscar Technology. So if I just ask you both just to introduce yourselves, perhaps start with Amber first, moving on to Alice, and then I'll stay with Alice just to kickstart some of the questions as part of our panel. So Amber, over to yourself.
Thank you, Jeff. Hello, everybody. I'm Amber Gunst. I'm the CEO of Austin Technology Council. We are a nonprofit business association that has been in operation for 29 years. And our focus is solely on supporting and promoting the growth of tech in Austin. So whether that is the small 2 guys in a co-working desk that are looking to start up and they've got their product on the market already, to big, massive multinational corporations, and how they grow and the problem solving that companies need at all levels. So whether it's technology talent, or it's trying to figure out whether an IPO or going into private equity is a better exit plan and strategy for your company. We not only have resources within our community, but as Lee commented, in Austin, we are a very collaborative community. So just as she said, if you don't have the answer, but you ask us the question, if we don't have the answer, we've got 10 to 20 other people that do. So we're very proud of our community and the way that we work and collaborate together, and just excited to be here with you all today.
Lovely. Thanks very much for that, Amber. Moving on to yourself, Alice.
Morning, everyone. So I probably sound like I'm calling you from the UK today, but I'm actually in Austin, Texas, and I've got Texan flag behind me. So I actually started my career in talent acquisition in Manchester. So I worked there for almost 3 years before moving over to Austin. So Oscar Technology are a tech recruitment or staffing firm. So I've got quite a unique view on this because I've hired and partnered with a lot of companies on both sides of the Atlantic in the cities that we're speaking about, and I just want to highlight that I think there are so many similarities between Austin and Manchester. There are a few differences as well that I can go into, which I think are quite interesting. But firstly, they're great cities to live in. There are in both countries about 10 to 15 software jobs to every good engineer. So when people are looking for jobs, they have a pick of the bunch. And both cities offer an amazing lifestyle, great bars, restaurants, things to do outside, live music. They're both twinned with being, you know, live music capitals of their country. So they're great cities to live in. Key differences, I think, which have benefits as well, would be that engineers in the UK are a lot cheaper than in the US. So a senior engineer in Austin, you'd be lucky to get someone for around $150,000. Whereas in the UK, you're probably looking at about, well, in Manchester, you'd be looking at about £55,000 to £65,000. So roughly $80,000. So that's quite considerable, I would say, really, for when you're considering tech acquisition. And also in the UK, quite often engineers will have, you know, a single skill, single language, whereas in the US, everyone's a lot more polyglot. That kind of comes down to the startup environment, I think, in Austin. So everything's much quicker paced and faster moving because of VC funding.
Sorry, just to jump in. So yeah, some great plugs there, because I'm keen to explore some of these points in a second. So two great plugs for both cities, and great that you're ambassador of both. But if I can just home in specifically from a business point of view, and bearing in mind the audience that we've got listening in, not just today, but also in the future. Perhaps if you can just give us an overall flavour of the journey that your business has been involved in, and just to touch on some of the key drivers, perhaps some of the hurdles, and then just some of these success outcomes that you've experienced. So just a couple of minutes on those, that would be brilliant. Thanks, Alice.
Yeah, no worries. So we started off in the UK doing tech recruitment 20 years ago. We actually moved out to Houston 8 years ago to work within oil and gas. In the last 4 years, really, our company top billers globally have been in Houston doing tech. Now, tech isn't best in Houston, in Texas, let alone the US. So that's partly why I moved over here to build on the tech market in the US, because it is booming, and Austin really is the center of growth for that, I think. More people move to Austin every day than anywhere else in the world, or at least they were before the pandemic. So it really is growing at an accelerated rate. But the two markets are quite different, and they work, although they're similar, they work different. So we've had a big learning curve, and part of that is the VC funding that I was just touching on. But that's, you know, a whirlwind, very interesting, got to get your head around it. But that's partly, I think, where the successes come from. Where I think there's big growth for the US is fintech. Finance is a bit further behind Manchester and London, I think. Those tech hubs are way ahead of over here, I would say. Anything to do with AI, machine learning, you know, tech in general. I think if you're invested in the UK, you've got to try and get a piece of the pie in the US as well, and that's what we're doing by opening Austin.
Lovely. Thanks for that, Alice. If I can bring back in Hannah from MIDAS at this particular point, and you touched on some of these points before, Hannah, but just wanted to explore the unique aspects of Manchester's ecosystem, and just to, you know, if you can outline some of the more practical support that MIDAS can offer, again, specifically with that digital lens on for businesses that are looking to make that inward investment.
Sure, thanks, Jeff. I think just echoing what Lee said before, it is listening to the overviews of the two cities. There are so many similarities, and the way Lee described Austin before, I could have been talking about Manchester in so many ways. And I think one of the things that does set Manchester apart, although obviously seems very similar to Austin, is around that collaboration piece. And I think that's probably where there are so many similarities between the two cities. The tech sector in particular within Manchester is very collaborative. Businesses, it's a very welcoming city, not just in technology, but across industries. So new businesses are very much, it's very easy to build your network. there's a lot of networking events, even in these virtual times. There's still a lot of ways to be able to engage and to be able to build up your networks, and you're always kind of just one step away from the person that you need to be speaking to, and there's always somebody there to be able to make that introduction. And I think that really does set Manchester apart in terms of the UK, in terms of that ease of doing business. And where MIDAS really steps in to be able to support that even further is by offering that first almost hand-holding point of view when a company is looking at the UK, particularly if it's a US company looking at Europe, looking at the UK for the first time, to be able to offer a kind of an overview of what's happening here, who the key players are, what networks you might want to get involved in, what events you can take part in, what the different areas of the city, what happens where the incubators are, where the accelerator programs are, how you get involved in those. It's very much practical advice that helps companies save a lot of time and energy in terms of doing that on the ground research themselves, and it allows them to be able to concentrate on actually building their business and delivering that business plan, as opposed to trawling around the internet trying to find an accountant that they think might be suitable because of some reviews that they've had. To actually have a personal recommendation, or to be able to be instantly introduced to a co-working space that has similar sorts of companies that you might want to partner with, or that you might be able to work alongside. It saves a huge amount of time and energy. So just in terms of what we do, we tend to work with a company to understand what the business need is. What are you trying to achieve by setting up in Manchester? What are your key drivers? And then we work to build that business case to see how are we going to help you achieve that. And that can be all sorts of different things. And as Laura said before, every company is different. So we very much tailor the plan that we work with companies on to that business and that business need.
Lovely, thanks for that, Tana. Yeah, it's just crucial, isn't it, really, just to really get to know that business and that hand-holding that we've spoken about during this particular call, and really appropriate signposting, so people aren't, or businesses aren't having to spend the time and energy. Go to the people that know, and they're there to support you in your particular journey. Thanks for that, Hannah. If I can bring back in Lee, Amber, and Laura, and again, similar question, really. In light of the unique aspects of Austin and its ecosystem that we've talked about already, what other practical supports can Austin offer those businesses out there that perhaps looking to take the first steps into that particular market, again through that digital lens? So if I can start first perhaps with Lee for her input, and then we'll move on to Amber, and then to Laura, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I think from a practical standpoint, and being really honest, I think anywhere you start in Austin is a great point of your first contact. I would encourage businesses, tech and non-tech, to reach out to the chamber. One, because we are privately held, and why that's important is because if you are looking to explore Austin confidentially, we can hold that confidential information and do so all the time. And also, we are in and of itself very collaborative. So, our goal is never to hold on to contacts or try to answer every question. Our team is extremely well connected, and really we're here in Austin to bridge relationships and to grow relationships. So the best way we can serve any business or any founder coming to us is to get them embedded into the ecosystems very quickly. So it is a really good place to start. But I also know if you contacted Amber with the Austin Technology Council, Amber would do the same thing. So it is why I love being in Austin, because I think we all really respect and trust one another in that.
Lovely, thanks very much indeed, Lee. And moving on to yourself, Amber.
I think, like you know, I could piggyback on everything Lee just said. It would be very easy to do, especially I worked at the chamber years ago. So it'd be really easy to just talk about that. But the reality is one of the other really wonderful practical things about Austin is there's no one that's unwilling to take a phone call. Whether you're a big unicorn founder or you're a publicly traded CEO, if someone reaches out to you and they're new to town and they're looking to get the lay of the land, that's one of the smartest things that you can do. And we see that all the time with tech executives who are moving to Austin or founders that are looking to start a business in Austin. One of the first things that they do is they reach out and they try to figure out who are the people that can best assist them. So whether it's somebody who's going through the exact same thing you're going through right now, or someone who went through it 20 years ago, who is getting ready to ride off into the sunset, but still wants to offer some really valuable solutions. We just had Greg Gilmore announced that he is retiring from Planview after 25 years of being the CEO. And we did an event with him last week where he said, of course, I'm still going to be around. I still want to help people. You can still get a hold of me. And that's the mentality of Austin. And that's what really makes it unique and important. So it's not just groups like Austin Technology Council and the Austin Chamber of Commerce who collaborate together, but companies collaborate together. And there's a saying that we hear all the time in the Austin community that everybody's pretty much familiar with, is that a rising tide lifts all ships. And that's truly something that our founders and our executives live by. Even if you're not originally from Austin, if you spend more than 5 minutes with us, you're going to have that same philosophy. So that's a really great thing. And another aspect is the solution providers that we have in town. People like law firms that you need assistance with, or, you know, accounting firms or staffing firms. You know, again, Google searches can be really great in some respects, but when you're looking for a trusted advisor, especially if your company is moving into an area that you're unfamiliar with, reaching out to groups like Austin Technology Council or the Austin Chamber, we can get you directed exactly to who you need to talk to based on what your specific needs are. So it's a really important close-knit community, and nobody's trying to be the one organization or the one company that comes out on top all by themselves, because the more that we can do to help each other, the better our community is going to thrive. And that's really the reason why I moved to Austin in 2009, and it really has continued to be one of the fastest growing cities in the country for the past 12 years.
Thanks very much for that, Amber. Yeah, just wanted to allow Laura just to give her input, because just conscious of time, things are moving at pace. But again, Laura, anything you'd like just to add to those comments so far?
Well, alongside Amber and Lee, we all work together. It's additive. We don't compete. We offer things and share resources and knowledge. So in being in touch with one of our organizations, you're very likely to be connected with another. From the DIT perspective, the thing that we can provide are sometimes testimonials or mentors like Alice, who have come from the UK. They have that cultural experience in the UK, and moving to Austin, they have that kind of rapport and are really interested in sharing what their experiences are. So we think that's valuable in the UK, US context. I would also mention that the Department for International Trade also works with the Consul General and the British Consulate. So you have the additive. You can utilize the residents if you have an event. You can use our consular offices here in Houston. If you're going to Texas to have some business meetings before you go to Austin, for instance, for a trip. So we do like to roll out the red carpet when you're taking time to take a look at Austin, and be sure that we're connecting you to those resources that are potentially important to you as a Brit.
Lovely, thanks very much for that, Laura. Yeah, just one last question, and again, if we can, I think just push you just to be brief on this last question. Perhaps just 2 points from each of our panelists today. So, thinking about all of the similarities that we've spoken about and touched on with regards to Manchester and also to Austin, how do you feel that we can build on these existing areas of commonality, ultimately to support international expansion of businesses into either city. So if I can start with Hannah, so again, I'm just going to push you on to 2 points that you feel that we can really work on in terms of those existing areas of commonality.
Take myself off mute. In terms of, well, how can we build on the similarities? I think programs like the Global Scale Up program that Business Growth Hub runs are ideal for that. It gives companies, it matches companies with, looks at what their key drivers are internationally, and looks for similar cities around the world that would offer those offer solutions to those drivers. So I think programs like that, and I think in other ways that we can build on the similarities, or perhaps events like this where we can get the two cities together in a room or virtually, look at where the similarities are, look at where the differences are, and look at where connections can be made.
Lovely, thanks, Anna. Yeah, and certainly post this event, we'll be looking to get together and look how we can build on today's session, ultimately for the benefit of businesses as well. Thanks for that, Anna. Moving over to Lee from an Austin perspective. Again, just 2 key points, Lee, in terms of existing commonality areas.
I just think there's so much to benefit from even conversations like this, and I do think the future is global. We are actually seeing all the time, even more so now that our tech companies are looking to grow their customer base internationally. And I think having a conversation like this to introduce someone to Manchester who may feel a little overwhelmed or unfamiliar of even how to take the first step, and just being able to recognize who on this call they can reach out to, and just as a starting point. So I actually think there's so many commonalities, and like I said, just knowing that it's an opportunity is key, and knowing that doing so, I think, is more doable now than ever before. So that's where I am, and I'm excited about what can possibly happen going forward.
Lovely, thanks, Lee. Yeah, some great opportunities with the remote working that we're all now embracing. Over to yourself, Amber.
Really, there's one that just jumps out at me, and that is being open to new connections. So whether it's a CEO who's open to it, or there are individuals from city governments or state governments that are traveling back and forth between the 2 countries, going out, getting connected with the people in Manchester, with the people in Austin, to have a better understanding, so that when you are ready to make that move in a global aspect, whether it's for customers acquisition or it is to grow your team, you have a really good understanding of how to do it, when to do it, and then it's more successful in the long run for everyone.
Great, thanks, Amber. Yeah, so clear message there. Reach out to people. Don't be afraid of contacting whoever it is you're thinking of contacting. We really are a friendly bunch in terms of helping support you, whichever city you're thinking of investing in. And Laura.
I would say, and a lot of this echoes what's been said before, but the first thing that I would suggest is let's not recreate the wheel. We have so much institutional knowledge amongst ourselves that we can make on both sides of the pond introductions rather than starting from scratch. You could talk to any of the trusted advisors on this call to understand, where would I go for accounting? What are the options, rather than having to think from ground zero. So I would say use us as your cheat sheet. And the second thing I would say is, as we learn from us, that you be sure to share your stories in the other way. So we have that narrative of what works, those case studies, that experience, so that we know how to create that network of mentorship that helps early stage companies as they expand.
Lovely, thanks, Laura. Yeah, and the whole area of mentors is something that's very close to my heart. And again, I'm sure that's something that in the future we can certainly explore for the benefit of businesses linking in, which links in quite nicely to Alice from a business perspective. Building on existing areas of commonality from a business perspective, what would you add to that, Alice?
From a business perspective, I think both sides of the pond need to be more aware that there are solutions to what seems like an expensive move to London or San Francisco and New York. So I actually think the larger companies already know about Manchester and Austin. I think what we could do better at, and which really help push it, is from the startup. So, you know, really bridging the gap on the startup side, I think, so more of a grassroots.
Brilliant, yeah. So good to give that first step on the ladder, so to speak, for our SMEs as well. Just conscious of time, we've run over slightly. Is there anything in the chat, Hannah, that has come up? I've not got sight of that as yet. Anything come up in the chat? Any questions?
No questions that have come up.
Okay. So yeah, just before I draw things to a close, we've got the slide there, just in terms of some of the contacts that have been mentioned today, and thank you to the panelists and the presenters today that have put their details in the chat as well. So just you know, on behalf of everybody here at the Business Growth Hub, the Growth Company, just wanted to say a really big thank you to all of our presenters, to our panelists today, and to you, our audience, for joining us as well. We really hope that you've found the session useful, and wherever you are in the world, stay safe, enjoy the rest of your day, and please, you know, reach out, get in contact with us. We are here to help. Thanks very much, everybody.